Those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. AMP2.tv presents Tell Us Your Business, where you're invited on the air to tell us what makes your business stand out in the community. It's important we hear from you to tell us all we need to know about what you do best. Tell Us Your Business uses the latest radio and television production systems, and all shows can be seen on amp2.tv. If you have a question for our guest, call 888-565-1470. Now, let's get ready as our guest hits the airwaves and informs us about what we need to know on Tell Us Your Business.
Your voice in my face.
Oh, yes. That's true. We only have a couple of cameras. I'm working on that, by the way. Listen, today is Happy New Year.
Thank you.
The Molotov cocktail. I don't know what the hell that thing is called.
Rosh Hashanah?
No, the thing with the
shofar?
Yes. Yeah, so far, so good.
Shofar. You blow the shofar.
Yes, and nobody at your house, at your parents' house, blew the shofar.
We do not have one at my parents' house. My brother used to blow the shofar. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to Tell Us Your Biz.
Your brother blew the shofar?
Brooklyn Cafe Show after hours. Happy Rosh Hashanah to everyone who celebrates.
What are you laughing
yes,
at,
my
Justin?
brother will go to synagogue and blow the shofar. Just don't even go there.
Your brother
nothing...
blew the shofar.
Yes.
Be very, very careful with
Yes.
that. Now, you know, Lucy, if I Puerto Rican and I say shofar or...
It's a ram's horn.
Yes, I know.
So we're just going to take all of that out of it. So Happy New Year to everyone. It is 5782, I think. 5782.
Isn't the world, I don't even think the world's that long, that old.
Apparently.
You guys have like this whole different clock going.
I know. It's called the lunar calendar. And the one fun fact that I learned that I never knew is that Rosh Hashanah, the new year, is always on a new moon, which I did not know.
Yes.
Because it's based on the lunar calendar. So fun fact on that.
New moon, new calendar, new year. You didn't even ask me to wear that little hat.
The yarmulke.
Yeah, I had it under my other hat. It was hidden. I had the hidden yarmulke.
It's an interesting way, 2 years not in synagogue, and how you can be with family and friends and do it COVID-friendly, smaller gatherings, at least in my family, but always meaningful. So happy Rosh Hashanah, Happy New Year to everybody, from our family to yours.
Excellent. And today we have a new guest.
I'm excited. Today we've got Justin Mooney joining us. Attorney Justin Mooney, not only attorney LLM, talking to us about wills, estates, probate. He is with Hinman, Howard, and Cattell in Boynton Beach. So we're going to get into all of that. And Justin comes to us from our good friend Wayne Henry from Dignity Memorial, Southeast Florida.
Mr. Wayne.
And we had the pleasure to meet Justin a few weeks ago on one of our fun Fridays at the cafe.
How'd you like that, by the way?
Oh, it was great.
A little different here, right?
Yeah. More intimate.
Subdued here?
What's that?
More subdued?
Yes.
That was like a wild
It's a
party.
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
That's a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Bring him back for another Friday afternoon.
Yeah, bottles were popping when I walked in at 11:30.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that all those different companies were going to show up, but that's exactly what Wayne loves.
Yeah.
Because I think Wayne spoke to Eileen.
Yes.
And they're working something out.
It's kind of like the chamber.
And
or-
Jackie, from the coffee people.
Very nice. Angel, but yes.
Yeah. her
You're
too.
close.
I'm just going to shut up now.
We're kind of off our game here. It's been a couple days off. Happy Labor Day, everyone. That was yesterday. It's been a whole lot of fun, a whole lot of celebrations going on. So I hope everybody is safe, doing what they need to do, being careful and safe and protecting your family. But let's talk to Justin. I'm excited. Give us a call. As Freddie always says, get your pen and paper because you do not want to miss this. You can call us live right here at the radio station, 888-565-1470. What's the number, Freddie?
You just said it.
888-565-1470. Give us a call right here because there's a lot of information we want to get out. We're going to put Justin's information on the screen as well so you can contact him at the law firm. But let's get right into it. Tell us what an LLM, how that differentiates from an accountant and an attorney as an LLM.
Right. So all attorneys, or at least people that have been barred, except in California, but in Florida, you go to a 3-year law school, and then you take the bar exam, and you become a lawyer. ESQ. You put those initials after your name. The LLM is
talking about estate planning, taxes, as I always say, well, they tell us, two things you have to do in life. You die and you pay taxes. So Wayne takes care of half of it, and Justin takes care of both of those things to get everything in place. So whenever the ultimate happens, you know you are covered. So Justin's going to be joining us in just a few minutes talking about estate planning. And before he went to commercial break, we were talking about what the tax limit is on trust, which is over $11 million. So if you are under the $11 million category, we're going to talk about, do you need to have things in a trust or not? And I know the whole planning issue is really important because we want to avoid being in probate. And as soon as Justin joins us back, we're going to talk about that. And when you've got kids, what you're looking at different stages of your life, whether you're single, a married couple, starting with young children, then you're looking at guardianship and everything else that goes on after that. And then as your kids grow up, all of those different things. So Justin is joining us. You can contact him at Hinman, Howard, and Cattell, located in Boynton Beach at 561-276-1008. But in the meantime, you can call us right here at the radio station, 888-565-1470.
All right, let's try that again with
So-
Justin, because we got that.
Let's get back into this. You were talking about trusts over $11 million.
Yeah, not necessarily trust, but each individual person, unmarried individual in the U.S., actually citizens. So even if you're living overseas and you still have your U.S. citizenship, if you die with over $11.7 million, everything over that amount gets taxed at 40%. And there's a lot of different mechanisms you can use to reduce what's called your taxable estate. You can make gifts during your life. You can use up the exemption.
Get closer to your mic.
Sorry. But there's a lot of different ways that you can avoid paying the estate tax or pay it early. There's a lot of different vehicles in place to make it advantageous and make sure that your heirs aren't.
Come closer to your mic, Justin. What is it?
Make sure that your heirs aren't going to be losing out on their inheritance.
But let's go under the $11 million.
Yeah.
So most people probably are not in that $11 million category.
Yeah, it's a fraction of
A fraction.
a fraction of a percent that actually have to worry about this. In
So
the
if we
US.
want to talk to our listening audience,
Yeah.
what are we looking at as far as if we're talking about estate planning, trust, probate? What are some of the basics we're looking at that we should put in place?
Yeah, the number one thing that'll indicate whether I have a client that needs to have a trust versus just standard estate planning with a will is whether they have property outside of the state of Florida. So when you die in a state, you have to go to the probate court, and it's basically the process of changing legal title from the dead person to their heirs. And if you have property in another state, you have to do probate in that state as well. And generally probate can be from $3,000 to $10,000 or more for all the attorney's costs. And if you're having to do that in another state, it's a headache.
Well, if you're just living in Florida
Yeah.
and you're a married couple, you've got your 2.2 children, what do you need to do? Do you want to put your will in place? You want to put guardianship in place? Not worry, right? So
Yeah.
that alleviates the probate issue. Heaven forbid something happens.
Right. So I'll have a married couple, for instance, they have, minor children. They come in and they tell me, what do I need to do? At a minimum, I would suggest having all their health care and their financial documents in place. The healthcare surrogate is basically you naming who's going to make your healthcare decisions if you're incapacitated. You're either mentally unsound to make your own decisions, you're in a coma, something like that. Usually the married couple will name each other, and the same thing for their durable power of attorney form. The big thing is what happens if I'm incapacitated and my spouse is incapacitated, or they're no longer living. You have to name an alternate. It's very helpful if you need, if you have monthly payments like a mortgage or bank accounts, that your backup, your durable power of attorney, can make those decisions or make those payments on your behalf. They can go to the bank, show them the document, and make sure that you don't go into default while you're mentally incapacitated.
Guardianship, do you work with that as well, or for
Yes,
children?
I do. So in wills, we ask the parents who they want to name if they're both gone, and there's a lot of different factors that come into that. A lot of it, most of the time people are like, oh, my parents will take care of them. But they don't realize if you're not here, your parents might not be here. There's a lot of options. I think the biggest takeaway I can give is speak with an estate planner and ask them, it's that initial consult where they get to know you and they get to know your family, so they can kind of probe and see who would be best for certain guardianship positions or fiduciary positions, things like that.
Oh my gosh, I remember when my kids were little, I put that off. I buried my head in the sand because who I wanted to leave as guardians for my kids was different than who my husband wanted to leave. Of course, right? Everyone wants their family.
Yeah.
And it was this really tough decision. And it's like, was one supersede the other? So if one passes, we had these conversations. So if he had passed before me, obviously I would take care of the kids. If then I passed, whose will then comes into play? And all of these intricacies I would think about.
Right.
When basically all you really need to know is that your kids are well taken care of. That the monies
Right.
that you have are now set aside that will be there to raise your children.
Yeah. Yeah, and the big thing is it's somewhat confusing because the will, when you name who's going to be the guardian of your minor children, it isn't the final decision. The judge in the guardianship case is going to it's going to have a strong sway over who the judge chooses. But in all guardianship proceedings, especially for minor children, it's what's in the best interest of the child. Like, let's say one of the parents, really loves their brother, but he has no kids, he doesn't really have the resources or the experience dealing with them. The judge might not choose that person. But if it's a 50-50 between the named person and someone else who would be equally suitable, the judge is likely going to go with the person that was named because they take into account that the parent's wishes are very important to the child, and the parent knows the child best and could, if they were living, make the suggestion, which is where the will comes into place of you making that designation.
I find there's so many interesting milestones when your children are younger. Then when your kids go off to college,
Yeah.
they too should be putting some documents in place because as a parent, you don't have legal rights once they're the age of 18. If heaven forbid they get sick or they go travel overseas, they should have documents put in place.
Yes.
What type of and that I had never heard of until my kids went to college.
Yeah, the biggest thing is going to be the healthcare surrogate form. So they probably don't have that many bills or financial accounts, but if you as a parent, you could, find that out and just pay those off. But the healthcare surrogate form, most of the time, the medical professionals will go through what's called the proxy tree. If it's a child, they'll see if they have, or any person, they'll look to whether or not they have a spouse. If they don't have a spouse, parents. And it takes time. I mean, usually they get to the right answer, but it's good if the parent has this document in place and can show them. It cuts down time, which with medical decisions,
Sometimes can be critical.
Yeah.
Especially if you're overseas and you got to dig through things or college records or happen to be in the middle of a pandemic now.
Yeah.
You want to and you work with that as well.
Yes.
Probably not too time consuming
No.
because those are simple ones that you're
Certainly.
probably with the parental rights. Now, if we fast forward to elder care, the show we had on right before here was Caregiver Solutions. What I've also been told is you're looking at elderly, maybe they need guardianship,
Yes.
right? Because maybe their spouse at some point is not going to be able to make these decisions. What does guardianship look like for the elderly?
Yeah, so it's this form that a lot of professionals have been working with recently. It's called the Declaration of Pre-Need Guardian. So under Florida law, it's similar to the minor child guardianship where the parent names who they prefer. This allows you to name who you'd prefer if you became incapacitated, and the judge takes strong preference towards who you name. I had a case recently where the person failed to name anyone. They hadn't updated their documents in 25 years, and their relationship with their eldest children had soured. And it was the judge, after even the client, who at that time was deemed incapacitated, told the judge, I don't want anything to do with these kids. He looked at the 25-year-old documents and he was like, no, I think what you knew back then was best for you. So it's definitely something that, especially with elder care, I include it in all my packets with all the documents that I do. I'm like, You need to name a guardian if you become incapacitated.
It's really interesting, and everyone, they probably say their spouse at the time, but
Yeah.
as you get older, your spouse is going to get older, and then
Right.
that's a whole nother level of, I don't want to say burden, but at the time, if you're got Alzheimer's or dementia, that's a whole nother level of burden that an elderly spouse maybe can't handle. So how often should you look at your documents to maybe reassess a situation like this?
Most people suggest 3 to 5 years, which I think is good, but also if you have any births, divorces, or deaths in your family, it's time to take a look at who you named in certain documents and what needs to change. I'd say another thing that you can do is if your spouse is getting up in age, you can always name an alternate, because it's similar. The judge is going to look at, if your spouse is 91 years old and doesn't have mobility to even get to the court to show up for a hearing, they're probably not going to be best for you. You can put in a preference that you want to have a professional guardian. Florida has a registry of professional guardians who I've recommended in certain cases where family doesn't live nearby, or they have no close family that they would want controlling their life in that way. But they have professional guardians that will be appointed by the court. They are held to extremely high standard and do a great job, all the professional guardians I've worked with.
It's just so much information. So for everyone who's listening out there and you're going, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? I need to do this, or I need to do this. I've got young kids, I've got aging parents. What do I do for me if I'm single or married? Give Justin a call. You can call right in today, 888-565-1470. You can call him at his office, 561-276-1008. Consultation, is there a free consultation, a fee?
I mean, most of the time I'll have someone call me and, I'll spend 5 to 10 minutes on the phone with them, getting to understand their circumstances and recommend what I can do for them. And, if they want to have their documents, if they want to bring them in, and I'll review them for them. If there's nothing to update, I'm not going to charge them. Basically,
But if they're brand new, right? You've got a young baby on the way, a young
Yeah.
wife, a couple like you comes in and says, oh my gosh, what do I do? Where do I start? And of course, then you've got the money.
yeah,
I got to be a little more frugal because my bills are high.
right.
What are some of the most important things to put into place?
I would say you should have your healthcare documents and durable power of attorney in place. I know most estate planners will say you definitely need a will. If you're married and you trust your spouse taking care of the kids and everything automatically goes to the kids, unless you have stuff outside of probate, such as bank accounts with beneficiary designations or retirement accounts that have designations on who they pay out to.
Well, let's talk about that. You set up a retirement account and you don't know, right? You're setting it up through your business and you go, all right, I'm going to name my spouse.
Yes.
Something happens. Do you want to name your kids? Is it better to put some of this money into a trust, or does that not make a difference?
It all.
If you're making less than $11 million,
Yeah.
do you need to put investment accounts or long-term health care accounts into a trust? Back in the day, everyone was worried about changes in tax laws. Well, now you're over $11 million, so pretty much plus or minus, everyone has an idea of if you're
Yeah.
at that threshold or not.
Yeah, I think you ask an attorney to give you a yes or no, they say it depends. I will say most of the time I recommend to my clients setting up what's called a dynasty trust. So basically you create a trust for your children, and then it continues on for their benefit, for their life. If there's any money left over, it continues on in perpetuity for them.
What monies would you put into that trust, though?
Anything and everything.
Is it so if your IRA or the sale of a house or your stock
Yeah.
portfolio?
Let's go through a scenario. So let's say we have a person who is unmarried. Their spouse already passed away, and they have 2 kids and 4 grandkids. So when they die, everything in their estate I would recommend you put it into 2 separate trusts for the 2 kids, and then it continues. The kids have the benefit of that trust for their life. And in Florida, you're protected from a lot of predators. Like if you get into a car accident, the money in the trust is protected from that creditor. So it's a way to protect your inheritance for the benefit of your whole line of descendants.
So would the downside be that you can't access that
Screen
trust,
everything.
or can you, as the
No,
person,
so-
access that dynasty trust fund?
Yeah, it depends on how much you trust your kids. Like, I think a lot of the traditional Hollywood movie is, some rich.
I think of the
kid-
Dynasty TV show,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know if I would trust anyone
It's-
from that show.
Yeah, so you have these people who the parents don't trust them to manage their assets properly. So they have an independent trustee operating the account, and you can write whatever terms in it you want. You want the trust to be for their benefit to buy their first home. You want it to pay for college. You want it to pay for more of their daily expenses if they become a teacher rather than an investment banker. You want to take into account whether or not they sacrifice more of their time and do community outreach. They be,
It gets
things like
complicated.
that. Yeah, and it's also, does your child have substance abuse problems? Do you want to put in provisions that they can only get the money if the trustee puts in regularly, drug screening for them? There's a lot of different ways to, it's do you want to protect the money from outsiders, or do you want to protect the money from your kids? You want to protect them from themselves, essentially, or a combination of both. But a lot of the time I've seen people name their kid as their own trustee, and it still protects from outside creditors, and they can do whatever they want with some limitations.
Basically, you have to call Justin. Call him for a consultation to either reevaluate what you've already put in place or to put something new in place, because things change, families change, dynamics change. Certainly what you're looking at life, I think you could probably say things right now, what people want, totally different.
Yeah.
Give Justin a call. The best number would be
That's going to be my office number. It's the
561 276 1008. He is with Hinman, Howard, and Cattell Special Counsel in the Florida office. So give him a call. You can always email us here at the Brooklyn Cafe or call the radio station. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. So much more information. Oh my gosh, we barely even scratched the surface. Have a great evening. Tune in just a moment to Jordana Foster, Ready, Set, Go Beyond show. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
This has been Tell Us Your Business, where a special guest comes on every week and tells us what they do. All shows can be seen on amp2.tv, and if you wish to be a guest, call 866-224-5422 and tell us about your business. That's 866-224-5422.